I would like to thank everyone for the comments to the previous video, and while we're on the subject, I decided to make another one dedicated to cybersecurity. Today, we will talk about how your mobile device can be used to track your location and how to prevent it. This is Ron Martino. Mobile phones. Compact, convenient, exciting. As classy as they look, they are also high-class tracking instruments, performing their duty basically in two ways. One, by carrying a standard radio module that we use to make calls and send texts. The other, by running a smartphone device, which is a sort of a full-blown computer concealed inside the phone's body. The radio module consists of a receiver and a transmitter connected to the antenna. Modern phones do actually have antennas, but they're invisible because they are located internally. To make communication possible, your phone is always in touch with a number of radio nodes, which are called cellular base stations. Say, if you're at this point, these bases will be servicing your phone. Or, if you're here, these ones. The number of stations keeping connection with your phone depends on how densely a certain area is populated with them. There are quite a few of them in a large city, but a rural area would be obviously less populated because there are fewer subscribers there. Now, here's the thing. To better service you, cellular company measures signal strength of your phone at every base station. In this case, obviously, signal at base station A would be the strongest, because it's the closest to the subscriber. Base station B would measure the next strongest signal, while C would measure the least. So, signal strength, which is by the way measured in decibel, crudely translates to distance. Now, if we apply a little bit of geometry here, it's quite easy to see that by correlating signal strength from several base stations, we can calculate the actual whereabouts of the subscriber. However, we'd need at least 3 points to do that. So, the process of determining the location of a point by forming triangles to the point from known points is called triangulation. And as it all runs in real time, this is how any mobile can be tracked in seconds. If you ask me how precise this can get, well, it depends on how many base stations your phone is connected to at the moment, but basically ranges from hundreds to tens of meters. Wait, but how do they measure signal strength if I'm not talking at the moment? When the phone is in standby mode, it should not be transmitting anything, right? Wrong. From time to time, your phone sends service data to tell the network it's available. Otherwise, the phone company wouldn't know how to react when someone calls you. If your battery runs out and phone stops transmitting, the network tells the other party you're unavailable. Otherwise, it rings your phone and plays the waiting tones to the caller. Now, it gets a bit worse. Smartphones use the 3G, 4G, LTE or whatever network technology available in your country to transfer data. This means the radio module is active most of the time, which allows the service provider to track you much faster. And as today mobile networks, compared to old-school GSM, mostly use higher frequencies, which requires the base stations to stay closer to the subscriber, meaning their number has grown significantly, this makes tracking even more accurate. There is also a really remarkable technique called relative tracking. Example, if you, for whatever reason, happen to take a ride in a car with a corpse in the trunk, I mean as a passenger, of course. Say you just took a ride with your friends who happened to be criminals and you were not aware, then you got out of the car after a 2 hours ride, said bye-bye to them, and the criminals continued the trip on their own. When the police finds them, they will immediately know that you, in fact, were in that car. How? Well, because when the police extracts the phone location history data, they will run a relative search on the entire cellular network and all of its subscribers. The search will naturally yield another phone, which was following exactly the same path at exactly the same time. And yep, that would be yours. So you'll be summoned for questioning. This also works for people who have two phones, one in their real name and the other, as they may believe, anonymous. Well, if you keep both of them switched on and carry them around together, you are no longer anonymous. In fact, a simple research has shown that 3 same places that the 2 phones visit daily is enough to link them to each other. So, if for some reason you're up to having an extra anonymous phone, the first thing you want to do is never carry it around together with your regular phone. Okay, that was tracking from the cellular provider perspective. However, smartphone has its own means of tracking, and of course, it's the GPS module. Any software installed on your phone can access it, and that's a different kind of a security threat. In fact, it can access much more information on your phone than your provider. A malicious program can get the GPS data, your text messages, your photos, or any file that your phone has, and send them to a remote server for the perpetrators to use. How can a program like that end up on your phone? Well, there are basically 3 ways how. First, you install it yourself, as it was disguised as a legitimate program. There were cases when such software successfully made it to Google Play or Apple App Store without moderators noticing it. It was, of course, blocked later on, but it worked for some time. Also, Android phones, by enabling a menu setting, allow installing applications from untrusted sources. That's an alternative way. Second way, it was brought by a backdoor or a Trojan. What's a backdoor? I'll give you an example. Imagine you sent in for a handyman to have the lock replaced in your apartment, but without you realizing it, the handyman made a copy of your key and kept it to themselves. Now, if they make sure you're not there, they can come to your place, right? They can take pictures, lift fingerprints, gather DNA, whatever, and if they are discreet enough, this could go on for a while without you knowing, agree? They could even plot a listening device or a hidden camera and spy on you. Why do programs have backdoors? Well, sometimes they are deliberately left there by programmers, and sometimes they exist in the form of a vulnerability, simply put, errors in code, that some malicious party has discovered and started exploiting. There's also a third way. Sometimes programs gathering user data could be installed along with the operating system. It's not the Android programmers who do that, but your phone manufacturer or distributor. You probably noticed that your phone comes with pre-installed software that you can't uninstall. Well, some of those programs can get really naughty. A good way to avoid that would be to buy phones only from reputable distributors and not from some random online shops. How do you know if your phone is infected and doing some naughty stuff? Well, the first thing that should probably draw your attention is phone overheating and battery discharging faster than usual. That means the CPU is busy and radio module is transmitting data. What you should do then is stop using the device and have it reset to factory settings. This does not work with all viruses, however, and in some cases your phone needs to be reflashed. You could consult a specialist then. Spying software could also be installed by your significant one. This happens quite often. For that, you probably have to be in a healthy relationship. There's another, even wilder thing that's called Wi-Fi tracking that you probably have never heard of. Let me tell you a story. A while ago, I was experimenting with an Android evaluation board that's basically a small standalone computer that runs Android, but has no earpiece or radio module, no GPS, and no Wi-Fi functionality. It's just a tiny motherboard with a processor, memory, and a standard Ethernet socket for internet connectivity. I was planning to use it in my car in place of an old tape deck for navigation, with an addition of an external USB GPS receiver, also to play music, watch videos, track speed cams, etc. So I just received it in mail, it was sitting on my desk, all shiny and new, I hooked a monitor and a mouse to it and connected the internet cable. The thing worked right from the box, desktop showed up, I ran a couple of tests, this and that, etc. Then, just for fun, I started maps. I was sure it wouldn't know my coordinates, since there was no GPS sensor attached. To my surprise, the device immediately showed my location on the map. And it wasn't just the part of the city or the part of the street. It showed exactly where I was inside the building. When I saw it, I did not believe my eyes. So, how did that work? To answer that question, we have to consider how modern internet works. These days, most people use a device called router. Why do we need a router? Well, to get online, you need an IP address that your service provider supplies on a per-home basis, meaning one home gets one IP address. However, in our homes, we have several internet-enabled devices: laptop, smartphone, television, PC, and all of them need separate IPs to function. So here your router steps in. What it does is assign a local temporary IP address to every device in your apartment. That allows the devices to communicate with each other directly, and when they need to send or get something from the internet, with the help of the router, they use the external address, the one assigned to your home by the provider. The side effect of this is that from the internet point of view, all of your devices appear to be using the same IP address, and only your router knows which packet of data belongs to which device. Now it becomes clear how your IP address could be linked to your real location. Your mobile has a GPS device, which the operating system has access to. Your mobile also connects to your router's Wi-Fi network when you're home. That's exactly the moment when the location of your apartment is being exposed to the big one. From now on, it will link your IP address to GPS coordinates of your mobile when it's connected to your home router. So, any place you visit, whenever you connect to their Wi-Fi network, the big one translates coordinates provided by your phone and links them to the external IP address of that network. Tell you more, you don't really need to have a smartphone for that to work. Say you have a Wi-Fi network and you only use it with your laptop that does not have a GPS receiver. But then a friend comes over. Can I use your Wi-Fi? Sure. Bam! His phone obtains your IP address and immediately informs the big one of the actual location of the network using that IP address. Okay, imagine your friend did not come over and you did not allow anyone to connect to your Wi-Fi network. You do not have a mobile or have never connected it to your router. Does the big one still know the geolocation of your network? Yes, it does. How? Well, most people have their router configured to broadcast its SSID, that's the network name. If you fire up the Wi-Fi connection wizard on your mobile, you'll always see someone else's network. That's normal, right? Apart from the SSID, your router also broadcasts the MAC address, which is a unique hardware identifier pertaining to every network-enabled device sold in the world. Your smartphone has it, your network adapter has it, your television has it, and it cannot be changed. It's hardwired into the device. Now, let me ask you, do people with GPS-enabled smartphones walk by your window, or by your door in the hallway, or just come to visit? Sure they do. Their phones cannot log onto your Wi-Fi network. However, they can read the MAC address of your router, and that information also goes to the big one. Now, the big one does not yet know your IP address, but it has already linked the GPS location of your home to the MAC address of your router. So, only a single piece of the puzzle is missing. Once you log into any service hosted by the big buddy, using any device on your network, both your IP address and MAC get exposed. Bam! All the pieces of the puzzle are now in place. Your IP address is linked to the GPS location. Now, IP address. Is it easily leaked? Well, your IP gets exposed when you log onto any website or service on the internet, but that IP is visible only to that service, not everyone. For example, now, while you're watching this video, Google, who happens to own YouTube, knows your IP address. The reason the other party you're connecting to knows your IP is because, like was mentioned above, this is how the IP protocol works. But say you have a chat with someone on Facebook or WhatsApp, can they find out your IP address? Probably no, unless you tell them. How does that happen? Well, it's quite simple actually. If someone wants to know your IP address, all they have to do is have you follow a link to a file or a picture or an article that is hosted on their web server. Pay attention, a link, not the encapsulated picture that lies within Facebook or WhatsApp protocol, the stuff people exchange every day. It has to be exactly the external link. Here's what links look like usually. Once you visit that website, bam, your IP is exposed. In the world of black hat hackers, this method is called phishing. Phishing links can arrive to your system by any means: email, short message, social network, instant messaging, etc. Okay, at this point you probably want to ask me, what can I do about it? Well, here are some simple rules that you need to follow to be safe. Rule number 1. With any online activity, do not ever expose yourself in a way you could possibly be ashamed of or apologetic of. Never share private photos of yourself with anyone, even someone you date, lest they use it against you in the future. Whenever you keep private photos of yourself or your partner or your child on any internet-enabled device, remember that they could be stolen, which would give a hacker an opportunity to stalk or blackmail you. If you're concerned about privacy in a certain controversial situation, just turn off your mobile. Rule number 2. Be very careful about the links you click. Visiting any website reveals your IP address to the attacker. If you really need to open that link, but not sure if it's safe, use a browser plugin that enables anonymous surfing, like Browsec, for example. Number 3. Never use the same password around different websites. This is probably the one many people overlook the most. Here's why it's dangerous. Consider one of the websites you were registered with was hacked, and the entire user list, including your username and password, got compromised. Now, the first thing a hacker would do is run a check whether any of the stolen credentials would match other websites, including mail systems, social networks, etc. If the website, like Google for example, offers additional authorization options like phone number or authenticator app, please do use it. Number 4. Never divulge any personal information by phone. Cyber criminals will use various social engineering ploys to trick you into leaking sensitive personal data that they can use against you. In such situations, just say, "I'm sorry, I have no idea who I'm talking to. Can you please give me your work phone number so I can call you back?" Then log on to internet and check the number they gave you to make sure it actually does belong to a bank or a police department or a hospital or whatever they have introduced themselves as. Number 5. Never leave your device unattended. Always make sure you lock up your laptop or tablet if you need to leave. If you have to carry a flash drive around, consider purchasing the model that supports hardware encryption. In case you lose it, no one would be able to access your files. And number 6. Use your head at all times. This was Ron Martino with your cybersecurity advice. And that's all. Please give me a thumbs up and also don't forget to subscribe and comment and share. I'll see you next week.